the AirTag that followed her to room 1407. There are two kinds of sounds in a city, the ones everybody hears and the ones you have to be trained for. I spent a decade learning the second kind. I'm a field recordist, the guy who makes ocean waves sound like memories and elevator doors sound like inevitability. I listen for hums under the hum. I pick up on the frequency no one else notices until you show it to them and they say, "Of course. It was always there." The first time I heard the AirTag, I was editing a reel at the kitchen table while Leah got dressed for a donor gala that would smell like champagne and performative generosity. She moved through our apartment with that nimble economy I loved. Hair up, cuff bracelet, perfect black dress that looked poured, not worn. She'd put her tote down by the door, and as she slipped on heels, I heard it. The faintest blip, a shy sonar ping hiding inside the city's heartbeat. Most people would have missed it. My ears snagged. It wasn't my gear. It wasn't the fridge. It wasn't the neighbor's dishwasher or the elevator's relay in the hall. It was new. It was in the bag. "You good?" she called, lipstick tilted toward a mirror she made complicit. "Always," I said, and stood to kiss the bare spot below her ear that makes her laugh like a secret. She laughed. Heat sketched a path between us, and then, because timing has a sense of humor, her phone lit up with the name of the museum's board chair. She tucked it between cheek and shoulder, mouthed later to me, and was gone in a breeze of perfume that made me reconsider every bad decision I'd ever wanted. The ping stayed. I could have ignored it. My job had made me paranoid in elegant ways. Every room rehearsed a story, and I was the guy who collected the alibis. But 2 weeks earlier, Leah had started doing that thing where her phone sleeps face down on marble, and when she laughed in the kitchen it sounded like she was somewhere else. I told myself I was imagining it. Then I heard the AirTag's tiny hello, as if the universe had decided to hand me a microphone. I went to the bag. I didn't touch anything but the lining. I found it by sound before my fingers found it, taped inside an inner pocket as sleek and smug as a pearl. New, no scuffs. It pinged again, almost delighted to be recognized. I've used trackers for work, expensive Pelican cases on cross-country shipments, gear loans that would bankrupt me if they went astray. We had 2 AirTags in a junk drawer for that purpose. One was on my field kit. The other, apparently, was here. I put it back. I stood in our entrance like a man who hears a fire alarm that no one else acknowledges. Then I did the most cowardly, sensible thing available. I paired it. On my phone, a nameless device lurked in the Find My list. I renamed it Spare. If it wasn't ours, I'd see it move. If it was, I could explain to myself why I'd done a thing that even now felt like an audition for a man I didn't want to be. At 8:43 p.m., Spare left our building. At 9:06 p.m., it arrived at the museum. At 9:58 p.m., it left the museum and hung a right where cabs go to forget who hired them. At 10:21 p.m., it stopped moving at a hotel whose lobby I knew in the way you know rooms you've only walked through while working for somebody else's life. Room 1407, the app said, as if kindness could be absolute. I watched the dot breathe on the blueprint of that floor. I told myself reasons. Donors, after parties, a board member too drunk to sign a pledge in public. I told myself other reasons, and they were knives. The sound engineer in my head started mixing in the imagined soundtrack of Leah's laugh near a minibar, of someone else's name said in the tone I used to think belonged to me, of ice tapping glass like a metronome for a mistake. I didn't go. I didn't call. I lay down on the couch and practiced not hearing. Around midnight, the dot moved down the elevator shaft, crossed the lobby, and came home along the river's chilled breath. At 12:38 a.m., the lock turned. Leah slipped in with shoes in hand, hair down, dress soft around her legs like the night had decided to be kind. She saw me on the couch and smiled like we were still the people envy. You waited up, she said. Wanted to hear about the money, I said lightly. Her face did a flicker, pride, relief, calculation, and then settled toward mine. She kissed me and it wasn't nothing. It also wasn't the everything we used to trade without counting. Big day tomorrow, she said, and asked me to come to bed in a voice that made later sound like a promise we'd both keep. We were clumsy, then careful. Mouths that remembered, hands that negotiated. Heat returned like a language we hadn't used in a while, rusty at the edges and still fluent under the rust. We didn't go too far. We stopped because stopping felt like the kind of discipline a future could trust. She fell asleep with her leg between mine, territorial in a way that soothed and stung. At 2:17 a.m., the AirTag pinged faintly from the bag by the door as if to say, "Do you hear me now?" In the morning, Leah wrapped a scarf and asked if I wanted coffee. I said I'd make it. She stood in the doorway holding the mug like a prop and studied me. "You okay?" "Just thinking about noise profiles," I said. "What's useful, what's smoke?" She kissed my cheek. "Don't disappear into waveforms," she said. "Come back for dinner." After she left, I sat with the dot. It was either a test or a confession. Either way, it was mine now. I opened my laptop and my calendar and I did something I am not proud of. I blocked out my night and wrote 14:07 in a place only I would read. By 7, my ears had talked me into the hotel lobby. I told myself I was dropping equipment for an event in a ballroom that didn't need me. I told myself I wanted the truth without having to ask for it out loud. The concierge desk watched me with velvet suspicion. The elevators did what they always do: rose, fell, accepted. The carpet on 14 kept footsteps like gossip. I walked past 14:07 twice, once as a man who forgot something, and once as a man who never forgets anything. The third time, I stopped. The hall smelled like a lemon someone had considered zesting. I raised my hand and knocked before I could invent a reason not to. The door opened to a chain and a sliver of Leah's face. Hair up, eyes wide. That half-second where a person's body decides whether to flee or perform. "Evan," she said, and my name in her mouth felt like a bell rung underwater. "What are you doing here?" "Returning something," I said. "Or collecting it." I tapped my pocket. The AirTag pinged like a nervous bird. She unlatched the chain. The room behind her was bright in the particular way hotels do to make you forget you're not home. No suit jackets draped over chairs. No tie on the lamp. A glass with lipstick. The rumpled corner of a bed that looked slept beside, not in. My heart took inventory and kept trying to put the items on a shelf labeled later. "You put a tracker in my bag," she said. Not accusing. Not innocent. Just a person discovering a fact about her life that makes it tilt. "I found a tracker in your bag," I said. "Our spare. I thought it was on my kit. It was." She breathed. Relief, anger, hurt, the quick blend that makes a face look like weather. "You followed me." "No," I said, because I hadn't. "I listened to you from a distance." She closed her eyes as if that were somehow worse. "Do you want to come in?" That's the thing about doors. They're simple until they are. I stepped in. The room smelled like citrus and the cold metal of the minibar. She wrapped her arms around herself in a way that made me want to unwrap them. I didn't. "You weren't alone last night," I said, and watched her wince like the truth had jagged edges. "Then you came home to me and we—" "Yes," she said, "and yes." She looked at the bed like it might testify against her. "It's not what you think." "That sentence has never changed a mind," I said gently. She nodded. "I know." We stood there becoming the people we were too careful to be. "Who is he?" I asked. "An artist," she said. I laughed because of course. No, she added, hearing the derision. Not that. He's a conservationist. He restores paint layers. He fixes things without pretending they're new. Must be nice, I said, to be the man who makes history behave. He listens, she said, and flushed because she heard what that implied about me. He listens differently. I listen for a living, I said. You know that. You listen to rooms, she said. You forget to listen to me. The thing about being right is it usually feels like being punched. I looked at the AirTag in my palm, stupid and shining. Why put our spare in your bag? I asked. If you didn't want to be followed. I told myself it was for safety, she said. Walking at night. I told myself that made me responsible. If I'm doing the text version, it's I wanted to be found if I got lost. If I'm doing the honest version, it's I wanted you to know something without me having to say it. She frowned at her own math. Or I wanted to be caught. I'm not sure there's a difference. Did you sleep with him? I asked, because sometimes a small cruelty is cleaner than the long kind. Not last night, she said. The honesty landed like a coin between us, heads, tails, neither of us calling it. Before that, once. I told myself it was the same as thinking about it. It is. It's louder. I sat on the edge of the bed because it was either that or fall. She sat beside me and didn't touch me. The air between our shoulders became a pressure system. Why him? I asked, softer than I felt. Because he sees work where most men see volunteers, she said. Because he told me I make rooms brave. Because when he looks at a ruin, he doesn't talk about tearing it down. He talks about scaffolding. She laughed at her own metaphor because she knows what I do and the irony wasn't lost. Because I was tired of making everything look easy. I didn't ask you to make it easy, I said. You didn't ask me anything, she said. You handed me soundtracks and asked me to guess the plot. We were quiet long enough to hear other people's lives happening through the wall. A shower, a laugh too bright, the wheeled suitcase of someone leaving for better timing. I wanted to be noble or cruel, something with definable edges. Instead, I was a field of static waiting for a signal. End it, I said finally, if we have a chance. I already did, she said, surprising me. Before I texted you last night to bring home the good ginger beer, before I let you kiss the spot under my ear and didn't move away. She stared at the glass with her lipstick, as if it could absolve her. I told him I wanted a life where I didn't have to narrate the clauses of my soul to feel seen. And me, I asked. You have to meet me there, she said. No more documentaries about other people's feelings. I need the behind the scenes of yours. We didn't kiss. We didn't fight. We did a thing that sometimes saves lives. We made a plan boring enough to be true. Phones face up. Thursday nights ring-fenced from fundraisers and edits. Therapy with a woman named Odessa whose website looked like a dental office and whose questions made me sweat. Walking home together at least twice a week with nothing to say and saying it anyway. And for me, a vow ugly enough to hold, no trackable anything in her bag ever again. She checked out of the hotel with the efficiency that had made me fall in love with her ability to close loops. In the elevator, she stood close without touching, a distance that felt like reverence or grief. In the lobby, a man in a black coat watched us with the curiosity strangers afford couples trying to decide whether to break. On the street, the cold did what cold does, told the truth. She slipped her arm into mine like a ritual. I deleted spare from my phone in 3 taps. The little chime it made felt like church. That night, we tried again the way you try to open a window that's been painted shut. Slow, careful, laughing when it stuck. The erotic came back in a different key. Not proof, not apology, not performance. A language that asked and listened and answered. I mapped her with my mouth like a coastline I'd always lived next to but never properly traced. She pulled me into her space like she was relearning gravity. We stopped when our history overwhelmed the present, and started when our bodies remembered we were allowed. Sleep found us arranged like a truce that wanted to be a country. Weeks shifted. We built scaffolding and didn't pretend it was a skyline. I learned to talk before I asked rooms to perform. I still chased waves at dawn and elevators at midnight, but I came home in time to watch Leah take off her bracelet and put it in the dish we bought in Lisbon when we were playing at Permanence. Sometimes she stood at the window in a t-shirt and asked me to come up behind her and trace the seam where shoulder becomes neck. I did. I do. Every once in a while, when the city goes quiet enough that even a trained ear has to earn it, I think I hear that faint ping again. I remind myself the sound lives in me now, not in a tracker. It's the frequency of attention. That's the only technology that ever mattered, and no one sells it because you can't outsource the work. We still argue. We still get it wrong. We still meet in rooms and ask each other to be brave. And on a Tuesday at 2:17 a.m., when Leah rolled over and laughed in her sleep at a dream I'll never hear, I pressed my mouth to the soft place below her ear and said her name out loud in the dark, like a password you're finally done forgetting.